coffees have you had today? 3, 4, 5, or more? While I can safely assume that most night shift workers have some form of caffeine running through their veins, there are some good and not so good things we need to know about consuming caffeine as night shift workers, and that's what we're going to talk about. But no, this video is not trying to convince you to give it up. That would be madness. As somebody who works the third shift, what is your absolute go-to source of caffeine? Whatever is your number one choice here, I wanted to explain first why it's so effective in keeping you awake and in a good mood in the early hours of the morning mid-shift. And to do this, I want to use a cheese analogy because, well, I love cheese. Okay, picture a slice of Swiss cheese. Yes, this is the one with the holes in it. So throughout the day, or in our case at night, these holes gradually become filled with a substance called adenosine. The more of these holes that become filled, the sleepier we get. So to counteract this problem, we consume caffeine. But what is actually happening is the caffeine also wants to fit into these holes. It comes over and flicks away the adenosine and nicely makes itself comfortable inside the holes, which makes us feel more alert, focused, and even improves our mood. Now, this sounds pretty flawless, right? Well, it is for a time until our brain catches on and starts to create new holes. This means we need to start consuming more caffeine for the same effect as what we used to get. Now, did you like that cheese analogy? Give us a thumbs up if you did. Thank you very much. So I've already mentioned that caffeine makes us feel alert and focused and improves our concentration, but I'm not done. I want to list a couple more reasons why night shift workers in particular crave caffeine so much. Consuming caffeine may improve our moods and make us feel happier because of its effect on dopamine, which is our feel-good hormone. We know night shift can be isolating at times because we're on different schedules to those we love the most, so consuming caffeine may help us out. In regards to exercising and work performance, caffeine could give you the lift that you so desperately want because it increases your heart rate and blood pressure. This can also be really effective if you are seriously sleep deprived and you had a horrible day's sleep. Drinking caffeine can give you a lift. Some researchers say that it even reduces the risk of chronic health conditions like diabetes, Parkinson's disease, and even Alzheimer's disease. This is wonderful news for us because often our jobs are labelled as killing us, but we talk about this in a different video. Devouring your favourite source of caffeine is also a great way for you to stay socially connected. Going to say hello to the local cafe owner on the morning of your day off is a great way to feel part of the community. Caffeine can also help you get home safely if you are driving after a shift. And lastly, it just tastes marvellous. Now for the not so good bits, we should probably know if we're going to consume caffeine and work the night shift. Number one is it can be really expensive, particularly as I mentioned before, the more we have, the more we need. Now, it also can make us feel a bit anxious and even jittery, particularly if we've had too much. Now, this almost hyper alert feeling that coffee can give us certainly has some pros that we talked about earlier. Improved concentration, better focus, we're more alert, but it can also be quite distracting. If your heart is beating madly in your chest and you're finding it difficult to concentrate, it may lead to workplace injuries and put you in a little spot of bother. It can also negatively impact our sleep, which, as you'd probably agree, is an area that most night shift workers struggle with. The thing about caffeine that you might not be aware of is that the level of caffeine in our body peaks about an hour after you've consumed it. It then stays at this level for about 6 hours, but can take up to 10 hours to be fully processed by your body. This is important to know because if we have a cup of tea or we really enjoy having a cup of coffee before we go to sleep, it's likely going to disrupt your slumber. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, caffeine doesn't affect my 40 winks, so it doesn't matter when I drink it. What's really interesting that I learned recently from Matthew Walker, who's a sleep professor that I've talked about before, is that caffeine can affect the later stages of sleep. By messing around with these later stages, we can wake up feeling not very well rested and like we could do this whole sleeping thing all over again. And I'm sure we've all woken up from time to time feeling like this. It can also make you wee more, which can be very inconvenient depending on what night shift job you're doing. If you work in healthcare right now and you're covered head to toe in PPE, it can be very time consuming needing to go to the bathroom every half an hour. There's also some research out there that caffeine can lead to malnutrition, which is a little bit scary for us because weight and managing our weight is often a problem for those who work overnight. Now, why this happens is because caffeine depletes key vitamins such as iron, calcium, magnesium, and also potassium. This can also contribute to the weird cravings that we get as our body tries to find some sort of energy in these nutrients to carry on. So, should you be giving up caffeine? If you are a healthy night shift worker with no chronic health disease, then never, in my wildest dreams, would I recommend that you totally give up caffeine. However, there are times that we could probably rein it in a little. According to the FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration, healthy adults shouldn't be having any more than 400 milligrams of caffeine a day. Now, in layman's terms, that's about 4 to 5 cups of a standard cup, not those huge things from Starbucks, a standard cup of coffee. 400 milligrams is what we should be having. If you're getting to these upper caffeine limits, but you need more, you need something else, what can you do? Well, you can either go for a lower caffeine substitute, such as green tea or something called yerba mate. I don't know how to pronounce this. It's a naturally derived caffeine tea containing various vitamins, minerals, amino acids to give you that energizing boost without the jitters. Another important point to remember here is to keep an eye on the time when you're at work. About 5 to 6 hours before you intend on closing your eyes and taking yourself off to dreamland is the time you have to stop drinking caffeine. Otherwise, it is going to negatively affect your sleep and you're not going to wake up feeling well rested. If after night shift you'd prefer to drink alcohol than coffee, this video is well worth watching because I understand what it's like to want something cool and refreshing once you get home. Thank you very much for checking out this video. If you liked it, consider subscribing to this channel. There's so many more tips that we've got about night shift and shift work, and we'd love you to join our community. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you at the next shift.